Good afternoon, my friends. What's happening? Hope you guys are all well. Thank you so very much for being here. Another episode of Killian Weeks here on YouTube. Hashtag Book of Killian, no matter how you found us. Welcome to another episode. We are into a presentation that I put together for Mr. Mark Sergeant. And sorry, I didn't even welcome my peeps. Yo, Raj, good to see you, my guy. Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you always for watching my back and making sure everything's on point from a moderation standpoint. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. So yeah, I sat down with Mark a little while ago and we chatted about a couple of things to intro, and then I ran through a 15 slide deck presentation I put together on the Vibes of the Cosmos aspect of things. That's the flat plateau plane, if you will, of Earth that I believe to be reflected in the surface of the moon. I actually came across a little bit more today, so I'm looking forward to uncovering that with you guys. But without further ado, let's get into this interview, and I'll interject as usual. Let's go. To ask you about is we talked briefly before about ego,
Right.
right? And consciousness and those things within just within life in general.
hmm
One of the things that I find that's really popping up between flat earthers and the marble guys is there seems to be a real ego that exists on the forefront of the marble guys, and just a willingness to learn and share knowledge and become wiser with the flat earth guys.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, based on your experiences
It's
in terms of your travels?
it's mostly I don't know if ego's the right word. I mean, it's part of it, of course,
Okay.
but it's mostly what I call, I'm just going to make up a term on the fly,
Mhm.
uh, an earned arrogance.
Okay.
Meaning, I one of the things I like doing is put myself in their shoes. So if I'm in their shoes,
Right.
I've just spent at least 4 years in university. If I got my master's, 8. If I've done my PhD, at least 12.
Right.
And I'm looking to be published. I'm looking to have my peer group set and all this and have my academic career. I've
Right.
spent all this time and money and hours and hours and hours, memorizing everything I possibly could in the library. Who are you to come up against me? And not only me, but the foundation that sits behind me and underneath me, and the shoulders of giants that I'm
Yeah.
sitting on.
Right.
And I get that. I completely understand that, but at the same time, it luckily, I came up with an answer you've heard me say where people, well, are you smarter than Einstein or Stephen Hawking and stuff like? No,
Hmm.
no, I don't have to. I use the Nikola Tesla approach, which is when he said that the problem with scientists is they never seem to check the work of the foundation they are building on. That's like the original guy. That's like, I'm going to extend off the work of this guy.
Hmm.
Whatever this guy did was absolutely right. I don't even have to look at it because it's obviously been peer reviewed. And if you keep doing that, the chances of you being wrong go higher and higher and higher. And basically, Tesla was saying when you get up to a certain level, the equations are meaningless. And the chances of them being right are very slim when you get up that high. But again, that is the nature of science.
Yeah.
It is partially ego, but it is mostly an arrogance that you know,
Earned.
they have earned through years
That's
and
just such
tons
a
of money.
valid statement. Holy, and I mean, I appreciate the fact that, again, it's not the problem that's the problem, it's your view of the problem that's the problem.
Right.
And I couldn't get past the idea of what's the truth. And
Right.
if you're not telling the truth, then what box are you standing on? And then obviously, who am I to come along and kick that box out, which makes perfect sense.
Right. And again, I'm not saying that scientists are evil. Obviously they're not.
Mm.
It's just that they are told, kind of like religion in a way, which is why we call it scientism sometimes, is that they are told this is absolutely right and you should preach this, right? And it's based on fact. And but then they start blending what I consider fact is what the average man on the street can test for himself.
Very
If
fair
it
statement.
cannot be tested, not only by the man on the street, but if a scientist cannot physically go out and prove it,
Right.
You can't put your stamp on it and say, "Oh yeah, dark matter, that's an absolute thing." It's like, what are you talking about? You can't prove it in any way, shape, or form. You can't even replicate gravity.
Mm-hmm.
That, which is why I love Neil deGrasse Tyson's saying, he at least he's honest. He gets himself into trouble sometimes where he goes, "We can't tell you what gravity is. We can only tell you what it does. We can only tell you the symptoms of gravity because we can't replicate it.
The
We can't." Now, can the military create anti-gravity? Maybe, but then it's probably just some sort of force field projection type thing. So
the
anyway,
idea of gravity and what we've seen with the TR3B and that technology and the whole idea of it canceling gravity, right? Versus like it being a propulsion system.
right, and even the vomit comet, the gravity anti-gravity simulator is not an anti-gravity simulator in the slightest. You're falling. You're just in a plane. You might as well be parachuting. You're parachuting without wind. That's all
Right.
you're doing. You are falling. You are falling in a chamber, and so there's no wind rushing around you. That's the only difference
Right.
between parachuting and being, doing that whole anti-gravity. Now, again, it gives you the simulation that you're kind of floating, but I'm pretty sure some of the physics around it are a little bit different because technically you are falling. So, whatever. I mean, no. I mean, science just drives me nuts in that regard. In that, again, I use cryptozoology. It's science. Where science gets in trouble is it's like, okay, you've heard me say this. You want to tell me what the boiling temperature is of water at sea level? Great. You've tested it. You know exactly what it is. I can go put a pot on the stove. I can get a crappy thermometer. I can test it. I can tell you what it is. But if you want to tell me what the core of the Earth looks like, oh no 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 no. No, you can't do that. In fact, in Wiki, which I love, here's where they get themselves in trouble. In Wiki, they say in the fine print, they say, well, we're extrapolating based on volcanic eruptions and blah blah blah. It's like, so you have no idea what's down there.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of expecting. It's like, because science does not like, I don't know what it is. They do not like putting any textbooks with a big question mark in the middle of something, right? That's what the globe
Yeah.
should be. The globe
Everything's
should
decisive.
everything.
Condemnation, right?
Yeah, it starts out as a theory and then in the fine print just goes away. Beforehand, it used to be, red band, orange, yellow, white hot center, right? And the small print, it's like extrapolated based on blah 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 blah, right? Kind of like drink responsibly. And but then all you have to do is get rid of that fine print and put it somewhere else, and people are looking at it, it's like, yeah, that's what the core of the Earth looks like. And then they get so brash that they go out and they say, oh yeah, by the way, here's what the core of Jupiter looks like. It's like, you haven't even claimed to have landed a probe on Jupiter. What the
Yeah.
hell? In fact, the only probe they ever said they ever went to was Mars, right?
Well,
So
it's funny you should say Jupiter.
hmm?
I said it's funny you should say Jupiter.
Why?
Part of my deck.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So science, and again, the cryptozoology I love bringing up because that hits close to home. Meaning, cryptozoology is any animal that science doesn't put a stamp on that exists yet because they don't have it under glass in a lab somewhere. And that has happened time and time and time again. If you find an animal, whatever it is, 3 heads and a spiked tail, walking around the ground, and you take a picture of it and you send it to science, they're going to be like, oh, well, it's obviously fake, and because we haven't seen it yet. And it's like, yeah, but you said that with basically everything.
Okay. Can I ask you a question on that? Since
Yeah,
you mentioned
yeah,
animal and stuff.
yeah.
What's your opinion on collagen within bones? Do you know
I
anything about that?
I know nothing
The
about that.
breakdown rate? No? Okay.
No,
I
why?
came across this
Is that,
thing
does
and
that tie into carbon dating?
well, I read something and then I was like, wait a minute, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because collagen apparently has a shelf life of like 10,000 years.
Okay.
And if you're showing us dinosaur bones, which, okay, the dinosaur bone is either fake
Right.
or it's within
Young.
the last 10,000 years,
Yeah.
which brings me back to the thought that some form of a dinosaur walked with man in like 4,500 BC, let's say.
Yeah.
5,000 BC.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've arrived at in
Oh,
terms of
I'm a believer. Oh yeah,
potentiality?
what you just said, exactly that. Meaning, I am not a
Bro,
believer in
that was like, go long, Mark.
I am not a believer in the carbon dating system at all.
Okay.
I am also, I know that some of the, there's a huge amount, David Weiss loves preaching the fact that there was no dinosaurs whatsoever. However, I go the other way and I say, do I think there were giant lizards out there? You bet. I mean, we got big lizards walking
They
around
talk
now.
about
Not,
in the Bible that this thing walked and its tail wagged just like its neck, and it
right,
like hit trees and stuff. It was clumsy, big like
right.
a what's the one with the big head and long neck?
Oh, the brontosaurus.
There you go.
Yeah. The,
The
yeah,
one that
yeah.
Fred goes down at the end of the tail.
So it's right. Do I think, do I think there were giant lizards walking around? Sure. Why not? Do I think there were millions and millions of years ago? No, which is why I do that whole coelacanth fish bit,
Yeah.
which is like, look, the coelacanth fish you
Okay.
said was 70 million years dead.
Yeah.
And then they're all over, and which is why I go into the plesiosaur argument, which is could there be plesiosaurs swimming around deep lakes, not just Loch Ness, but other places, right? And you say no, no, why? Well, because they've been extinct for so long. It's like, you mean like that fish over there, which were absolutely categorically put in a certificate you can frame wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone would have bet against it, and you swear. So no, no,
Mm-hmm.
I think that. And I do believe, and I think maybe we talked about this last time. I think there's species out there which we do discover every once in a while, but they're so big and anti-human that it's like some guy with a pith helmet walks out there. It's like, wow, look, that cobra is 20 feet tall. It's like, hey, get a picture of it, honey. And the next thing you know, all you see is a camera on the ground. That's it.
Oh boy.
And I think that happens all the time. There was this wonderful story of a what I named it the Goliath Cobra, where some military guys in a helicopter in the 50s, I think, were flying over an area and they saw this thing and they said the head was as big as a freaking horse. And they flew low enough to where it took a freaking swipe at them. Now it didn't get close or anything, but you're thinking, yeah,
Excuse me.
not all species that we find
Are created equal.
get discovered, because you've heard the stories. You walking in the jungle.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if you can get back out of the jungle, there's people that just walking in the jungle, don't find anything, and die in the jungle
Right.
without running
Yeah,
into
they
any
didn't make
weird
it back
animals.
to tell you.
I mean, there's oh yeah. So anyway,
So
so
yeah,
science.
I mean, so the collagen within bones gives, and that's where I say science. Like I can salute science and say,
Right,
that's lets us fill in that gap.
right.
That was pretty cool. I appreciate that, man.
Oh
Holy
yeah,
crap.
yeah, yeah.
That came out of nowhere. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
If I can get to, hold on, bear with me here before I jump in. Here where I'm at.
I like, by the way, how you have one of the original Microsoft
Oh,
backgrounds.
I actually, I got a warning from my tech department. They're like, you got to change that because they're probably going to be upset.
Who, Microsoft?
No, no, no. My office, what I did was I took the Town of Milton logo and I put it in the hillside. So like the Town of Milton logo was kind of just floating there.
What's wrong with that?
So I went on a work meeting one day and I get a message from IT. They're like, just beware, okay? I'm like, don't worry, I got you. All right. Let me go to my screen 2, screen 1, check, share. All right. So we can go with you slideshow. All right. So this is the moon
Right.
by Vibes of Cosmos.
Got
Okay,
it.
Killian. Oh, that's me. So image of the moon,
Yep.
right? This guy.
I probably know where you're going with this.
Well, this is Australia.
Yep.
These are the Americas.
Sure.
Based on the map. And then the big plot here being
Asia.
Pardon me?
Asia?
Yep. Now, flip it because over distance, images become flipped, right? Remember when we were younger, we had the magnascope, or not the magnascope, but magnifying glass. And
Yeah.
you would take it and change it. And as you took further and further away, the image would invert.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, flip the white to blue and the dark to green.
Very
And this
nice.
pops up. Okay, again, this is just Vibes of the Cosmos. Again, I just went onto their site, screen capped a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm
Yep.
like, I need to show this smart. Cool.
Yep.
Now, this is the section, cross section looking upwards. I'll talk about this item down here later on.
Okay.
This is the surface of the plateau.
Okay.
The light source hits the surface, bounces off bounces off the firmament,
Mm-hmm.
and then the image of the moon is created. This being, again, more of a 3D view of what's happening. Black Hole Sun, Soundgarden, that song.
Yep. Yep.
This would be it here. This is the hole Admiral Byrd discovered in 47, Operation High Jump.
Right.
This is the surface. Oops. This is the surface of the firmament. I believe that Polaris, being the North Star, is the, I guess, the direct opposite of the black hole sun.
Right.
We on the plane, depending on where we are, if we're over here, we see one thing. If we're over here, we see something else, i.e., the opposite of what's actually up here.
Right.
What are your thoughts so far?
I don't hate it. Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Why not?
Where'd it go? Okay, cool. I made a video, or not made a video, but I clipped the video out.
Got it.
Dang. I apologize, guys. There's no audio on this. I had originally showed this with, I thought there was audio coming through. I apologize profusely. When we watched it on the chat, the audio was coming through. So um, I'll have to pull this up
Yeah.
and fill in the blanks later.
I get it.
Hope you're enjoying it so far, guys. Okay.
And people have asked me that over the years, which is, whatever's in the sky, are we talking about a front screen or rear screen projection? And I could go either way because we just don't know. Because in fact, I don't even know if we're going to know until we get some way of being able to hang up there with something that isn't a plane.
Right.
I mean, a helicopter, again, part of the design of this place, helicopters can only go so high and planes can't stand still, which is why UFOs are the perfect blend. If UFOs run off of a unified field engine, it means they're the best of both worlds. They can travel at high rates of speed and they can hover dead silent, without doing anything. And the helicopter also has a problem, which is, yeah, you can hover, but you got this big blade above you. So you can't really, do that and look up at the same time. Again, I think it's part of the design. So no, I like it.
So something that I want to go back to for a quick second is this. Actually, I'm going to go to here for a quick sec. Now, the other thing that was presented to me was the fact that if this in fact were the reflection of the plane, the plateau of Earth.
Right. That means we have some land masses that
need to be figured out.
Yeah.
Now, I can't, with the orientation of like let's call this area the Black Rock, right? As we affectionately know the investment company, but this is the Black Rock. This is where the North Star ultimately resides.
Right.
So this is the known domain. Right. I'm not even going to get into this over here. Right.
Sure.
But I'm going to talk about this guy right here, which apparently, based on Vibes of the Cosmos, is Lemuria. They have it labeled as Lemuria.
Okay.
Now, we know, obviously, on our side, this is being Australia, we assume, and this being the Americas, we assume, and this is Lemuria. And we know because people fly over here all the time. They don't see no big landmass in here out in the sea.
Right.
My proposition, my proposal to you is, if this is in fact one side of a coin, this landmass is present on the other side of the coin, being inner Earth, which is the plane that was discovered by Admiral Byrd, because they talk about the moon being a plasma, or sorry, being made of plasma, but they also mention the fact that it's an X-ray. So if this is an X-ray of our disk, it would show both sides, because again, you're X-raying, you're going to see the top and the bottom of that plane. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it does.
And like this, well, bro, whether this is out here or not, we don't know, right? But these jaggedy edges all along here, they've all called this the Antarctic. Well, the Antarctic is just really a combination of ice wall, dome, I don't know, whatever it is,
Right.
but there's definitely something that keeps us in, right?
Right.
Um, so yeah, and I mean, this being located on the other side, this actually being the lands of, I don't know, Garden of Eden, who knows? But I also know that they have one of these other land masses in the presentation of Vibes of the Cosmos labeled as Pleiades. And Pleiades is interesting because that's where Jesus is from, according to the Bible.
Right.
And Pleiades is also identified as in the Taurus, the Eye of the Bull, the Seven Sisters, right? The Subaru logo,
Sure.
right? That's the Pleiades, the collection of the stars.
Yeah.
So again, if that exists on the other side, the inner Earth plane that was discovered again in 47 by Byrd, that's where my mind's kind of been going. Again, that's where it would be, on the underside of this plane. We're up here, right?
Yeah.
Lemuria is down here.
I like it.
All
I
right.
do.
Again, I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just showing it to you to
No,
say,
that's
hey, what do you think?
some out of the box thinking. And I have had people. You've probably done more of the more in depth explanations of it to me.
Sorry.
People have brought it up to me before, but not quite like this. So
Well, and the thing about it is, again, Mark, I can't begin to express this to you unless I totally understand it. And the only reason I can understand is because it makes sense.
right.
It's such a simplistic design where you look at the Pink Floyd album, right? And you see the image of refracted light, and the light bulb goes off, and you start to think, well, maybe we are in fact in a prism. He just built a prism, a petri dish, right? And the
Yeah.
dome of that petri dish is the firmament. And the light generated from the underside where the Garden of Eden is refracts off of the lid of the firmament, creates the ultimate light source being the North Star. And the people on the plane just visualize it according to where they are, because, as you say, God is a programmer. As my phone dings in agreement with me. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, next up, the firmaments.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is where it comes in Genesis, where in Genesis 1:6, he created the firmament on day 2, right?
Right.
Placed the lands in between the waters, which is the plane of earth. And you have the first firmament. Light refracts from the sun created, or the inner earth sun refracts. It's created here. The next up being the second heaven, the second firmament, where is it in the next sorry, I can't even say it, ethereal layer, Mercury and Venus. Men are for Mars, Mercury for Venus. Two halves create one whole. Works like the sun and the moon. On Mercury, we see the light energy, and on Venus, we see the dark energy that is included below. So in the next heaven, right? So we're at the third heaven now. We have the layer field, which creates Mars, which is the combination of Mercury and Venus. So Mercury and Venus, 1 and 2, create Mars, being the third. You go to the next one, and in the next layer, you have the Jupiter field, the Jupiter field, which includes the Mars field. So on the Jupiter field, we see all the fields that include below. Mars field also includes the Jupiter. So I believe potentially that there may be, when you talk about the stars being in alignment, it's really just an essence of refracted light that's going through. Because we've seen these real images of what these planets actually look like, and they give that shimmery water type look, right? Where it's almost like you're shining a laser light through a water. If you were to take like a plateau or a plate of water,
Hmm.
and you're to put a laser on one other side, the light generated on the other side would look like what we've been seeing these stars looking like, right? Which
Right.
would give essence to the heavens being, or sorry, the firmaments being created of water.
Right.
The last ethereal layer being which holds Saturn, which is the rings that reflect off of that last firmament, creates the rings of Saturn. And I believe that Saturn being representation potentially either of the son of the or the father, I'm not sure. I'm
Hmm.
struggling with that idea. But the inner earth sun being representation of, I'm going to go with the son of God, Jesus, literal terms.
Yeah.
And then the sun represents Saturn, this representation of God, as in he has dominion over what he has created. The last is that, which is where the stars are held in the last final firmament in what you would see. I my head hasn't gotten this far yet in terms of being able to get to the seventh heaven, because this would be the seventh heaven, right?
Sure.
Seven heavens,
Sure. 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 7 layers, basically.
seven layers. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And this is just like a little another pretty cool drawing that I came across in their stuff,
Mm.
obviously, and wanted to share. So you have these seven rings, Saturn again here, and the ether. The ether is interesting because the ether, chat about that is the identification of, sorry, where are we at? 12:27. Cool. Can't believe I smashed that out in 27 minutes, including a chat. Um, the ether discussion is interesting because it brings to light as the sun comes out. I love it. The discussion that the moonlight is cooler and the sunlight is hotter, which I believe, and I say that the sun and the moon are ignition type elements, and the ether is just, the ether is always there. It's a gaseous element. The cap is there, the firmament, the lid, right?
Right.
Those gases don't escape.
Yeah.
And the sun and the moon just ignite those gases when they're present in their path. That's why you can like read a book. Somebody brought up, why can you read a book when you're in a shadow, as an example? Well, it's just the gases are less active in that area that you're sitting in the shadow versus the direct sunlight.
Right.
Is all that fitting in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking at the layers there, it reminds me of when we make simulations, the only thing different between that and what we make is we make them with boxes instead of domes, because in engineering, it's always easier to use. It's way easier to use angles,
Well,
because
you could
angles
paint a
can be,
corner,
yeah,
right?
yeah. You
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 can
need a
paint a
corner. In
plane.
fact, if you zoomed in on that, I mean, there's a reason why pixels are always boxes.
Right.
Uh, which is why, but now you can simulate anything you want within that box. You can simulate curved surfaces within the box, but it's always boxes, which is
Yeah.
why, again, it's called if you look it up in the entertainment world, it's called a skybox system.
Mm,
Because again, it's just easier, because you know how engineering goes. It's always right angles, nothing but right angles.
yeah.
No.
Which lends into the idea that, when if we're walking on a globe,
Right.
how does the symmetry that we have within our field, our purview, if you will, how does that symmetry exist on a sphere?
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
Um,
The globe does only make sense as an icon. It only makes sense in that it is something you can hold in your hand, and people enjoy uh, the complete enclosure of it.
right.
People. I mean, they're used to it. It's so comfortable to them. But you have to indoctrinate people to it easy, to them early. But then again, if you show them the snow globe when they were 6 years old, and kept that in the classroom, they'd believe that. So
That's
the globe
that's
only
part
only
of it,
the
right?
globe only works if you're building a universe around it. Okay.
Well, so I've been going through. I had an amazing share dropped on my lap from a friend of mine, and it's just an hour and 40 minutes of just absolute gold. So I've been clipping, like absolutely clipping that and sharing that, uploading that left, right, and center. They're just like minute hits of like different video proofs and stuff. And that's one of the things they show is a bunch of kids sitting in the classroom and the teacher's holding the globe and she's pointing at it and doing all kinds of stuff. And sure enough, right, we sit in a classroom and we see the that, you know, we make that connection of the green and the blue,
Right.
right, and how that falls within the indoctrination, if you will,
Yeah.
of what's actually happening.
And part of it is just the human condition, which is, the line from the Truman Show. People believe the world that is presented to them. Because
I love
why we by default, unless you're a very cynical person, and most people aren't, it takes years to become cynical. We don't believe that other people would lie to us, especially people in authority. People in authority have our best interest at heart, right?
it. Mhm.
And like, no, no, it's for people in authority. It's all about keeping control. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. Look, if you tell people there's a snow globe, eventually, when technology reaches a certain level, people are going to want to. It's like, hey, can't we just take a boat out there? Can't we just go out there and
Okay,
look for ourselves?
you mentioned this, so I may as well go at it because we've got 8 minutes left, and we may as well go for gusto because this has been an amazing episode. And Mark, I'm so very thankful to have you as
Oh yeah,
somebody
yeah,
to,
yeah.
throw their ball around with on this.
Sure.
Um, Operation Fishbowl.
The high altitude atomic weapon test. Part of the high altitude. Yeah. What about it?
So how many nukes were, did you know, like 200 and something,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
some
four
crazy
4 years straight by the only two countries that had them, which is the United States and the Soviet Union,
union, right?
from 1958 up until 1962. And again, that's it. It goes into human nature, especially male nature, which is if you find a barrier that you can't get through. You've heard me say it, like get the cannon, and
Jerry.
like, just what's the biggest thing we got?
Okay,
So
so that is, and again, to be my dramatic self, put a label on it. That would be our modern day declaration of war against God, our Tower of Babel moment, if you want, right? Because
no, sure,
the tower. Well,
why
I go with
not?
the,
Why
I look at
not?
the Tower of Babel, and the aspect of they built this tower to reach the ceiling that they knew of, right?
Right,
They building, and
right,
God said no and smashed it and created the 70 countries, I guess, or 70
right,
languages
right.
or
Yeah,
whatever it is,
it
right?
was a clever solution, which was divide the languages up and scatter them everywhere, and again, it was a nice idea. The original, again, people downplay it because it was in Genesis and it was such a short but very potent story, which was there was a civilization before ours that was absolutely
Awesome.
100%. Yeah, they were awesome. They were
Mm-hmm.
the best that there was, and they were unified. Not only that, but they figured out the world. It's like, oh, we're going up there.
Yeah, let's go, baby.
Let's do this. And so yeah, is it possible that when we found the outer marker, to when we figured out it was a snow globe, and now do I think it was direct defiance? Was there a booming voice? It's like, do not approach, and
Mm-hmm.
thunder and lightning, and then it's like, fire the missiles. Yeah, if it was like that, then sure, direct defiance. But again, I think it's also human nature, which is, if you run into a fence, you heard my analogy, which is,
Yep.
if you run into human beings, that's all they're going to care about is
Keep
the fence.
knocking on it.
Can we get on the other side of this thing?
Yep.
And yes, it was, but you're right. At the same time, they're going, well, whoever built this is obviously bigger than us. It's like, should we fire anyway? And that goes along with what we have done in the past, which was the story, which I do believe, even though there's people that don't believe in atomic weapons, which is that the theory was, if you detonate an atomic weapon, it's possible that you could start a chain reaction to burn off all the oxygen in the atmosphere and everybody would die.
Right.
And you do it anyway because, well, who's
Why
going to yell
not?
at us if it
Yeah.
happens?
Yeah.
It's like, well, then we're dead.
Yeah.
And
We
same
went
thing with the
out trying.
hydrogen, and then they did it again with the hydrogen weapons. So, yeah, very interesting that you would make the comparison between Babel and that. So yes, that no one had ever brought that up like that, and you got a point there,
Okay,
which
I
is that
appreciate
would
that.
be our modern
So
Tower of Babel.
that's when we declared war against God again, right?
Right.
And so we use the guise of war to
Right,
launch nukes at the glass ceiling that
right,
Hillary Clinton has referred to many times about there being so many million cracks in the glass ceiling and we're so
right,
close and blah, blah, blah.
right.
Is this something, with 4 minutes left in our discussion,
Hmm?
that Bill Nye has accepted? Being one, somebody who always sold the idea of the round earth, and then you have him on tape saying humans have to understand that we're in a closed system.
Bill Nye's a tricky one because he's not exactly a scientist and he's not exactly uh, a globe advocate. He just got roped into. Don't forget where Bill started.
Yeah.
Real quick, Bill got his bachelor's in mechanical engineering,
Mm-hmm.
worked at Boeing for a little bit, but that
Mm-hmm.
was not what was in his heart. He decided to go into comedy and do a local Seattle comedy troupe, kind of like Chicago has one and Canada has one. And then just was in the right place at the right time. His producer, he didn't even come up with Bill Nye the Science Guy. His producer, Ross Schaefer, who said, "Hey, you're tall, angular. Put on a lab coat. We can do some skits with you."
Yeah,
And then
science.
yes, about science, right? And it seemed pretty catchy, but where he lucked out was Disney found that and said, "Well, he's not swearing. It's not controversial. You know what? Let's make
Give
it
him a
our
contract.
our version of Sesame Street." And then they syndicated it, and
Okay.
he was on television. I think he's still syndicated out there.
Okay.
And so people grew up with him thinking that, oh, well, he's the authority on science. And so producers drug him into studios. Because I asked him, I go, why do you keep putting him on television? It's like, because he looks the part.
Okay. So, how many non NDAs? How many NDAs do you think exist in this world?
Very few. Very,
Oh,
very, very few when it comes to this, because you don't want to, at the highest level, you don't want, I've said this, which is you want as few people to know the big picture. You know what you got on
well, that's what
screen
I'm
there?
saying. What I'm saying is, wouldn't everybody like Buzz Aldrin and these guys that went to the moon? They're all under NDAs.
Yeah, those guys. Well, the guys that are surviving, the last four, I think. Those, yeah, they were all under NDAs. But the
Yeah.
problem was they had psychological issues that they couldn't deal with. We human
Oh
beings
yeah. Okay,
have a
I got you.
real problem with that sort of pressure on you. Not only the secrets that you have to keep, but the
Yeah.
accolades you're getting for things you did not do.
Right.
Then they just feel guilty because these guys were Boy Scouts, and so then they figured out, okay, everyone else gets to sign an NDA, but we're not going to tell them crap. We're going to tell them it's like even the modern people. It's like, okay, you're faking the ISS missions. Why? Yep, that's above your pay grade. Sorry, and for a good reason,
Yeah.
which is like we can't tell you because you can speculate all you want, but we can't tell you because you're going to get all twitchy and you're probably crawl inside a bottle.
Okay.
So
Minute left.
yeah,
Last thing I want to ask you is, and this is like rapid fire.
yeah.
Why do you think they are doing this?
To hold on to what power they have.
Control.
Meaning, if you don't know, remember, our technology is not that. We didn't even have an HD until like 20 years ago.
Right.
If you don't figure out what this world truly is until 1960 because you don't have the tech, and by that I mean the aircraft and the research vehicles to find out, do you tell people,
Right.
knowing that there's a possibility that the civilization will crumble
Yeah.
because of that? No, you don't.
Mark, you're amazing, my friend. Thank you for maximizing time with me today. Be well, friend.
All right, thank you.
Take care, man.
All right, see you, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Happy to do it. Let me know when you want to do it again, and
Oh, yes, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Mark's been a pretty cool person. We've sat down and chatted. That's like our fourth time having a discussion about stuff, and to be able to sit down and throw the idea about with Vibes of the Cosmos around with him and have that, I guess, edified at this point in time. Just what makes sense. And Raj, so very thankful for you thinking that that's what you thought as well. Guys, any questions at all or any commentary in the comments, hit me up. Let me know what's up. If there's anything you'd like to discuss, let me know. That's going to wrap this up for this episode. I do have some more stuff coming. Some shares. But most importantly, I'm just going to close my window. Oh my gosh. Most importantly, we are I believe this alignment that's coming up in the sky next week. I think it's the I want to say the 14th. Something to pay attention to. 10:30 or 10 o'clock Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Tuesday night, which would be 5 a.m. Jerusalem time on Wednesday, and that would be in the twinkling of an eye, which would be sunrise. That is looking like prime time, if you will. But if you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, you don't. Guys, thanks for being here. I appreciate you as always. Have an amazing evening, and we'll catch up with you very soon. I hope you are enjoying those little quick clip shares that we've got coming up as well. Be well, guys. Take care. Peace.